CHCH multimedia platform. I'm Bubba O'Neill. Hey, with that warm weather upon us, that means a whole lot of talk about three-down football across the nation. Today, we're about to chat with one member of the media who's always in the know. Following a wild week 6 in the Canadian Football League, as I said, I got to talk football, folks. I mean, so with that said, let's bring in a good friend of, yes, Hamilton sports, yes, for a little bit there, and no doubt Southern Ontario. He's well-educated, the witty host of Gameplay on TSN 1050 in Toronto, and yes, he's also always provoking readers as a columnist on CFL.ca. Matt Cauz, welcome to the Sportsline Podcast. It's always great to have you, partner.
Great introduction.
Well, I'm glad you like that there, my friend.
Yeah.
Hey, hey, I haven't given up hope, by the way. I haven't given up hope. Shouldn't give up hope.
Well, I mean, it is the CFL where we see teams with losing records make the playoffs all the time. And the weird thing about Hamilton is you tell me at the beginning of the year, Bo Levi Mitchell is going to be healthy and is on pace to throw for 6,000 yards, which a lot of us sort of forgot because all our eyes are on Vernon Adams, and yet the team doesn't have a win. It's shocking, just the Ticats win-loss record, considering they're getting the production from the most important position.
Yeah, we'll dig into them deeper, but let's talk right off the top here, okay? What you saw last night, and following their home loss to the Red Blacks, I'm telling you, is a change at head coach required for the 0-5 Elks? I don't know what to say anymore.
It feels like it is. Like when you look at the record, he has 8 wins and what is it, like 33 losses so far. And, I'm always someone that wants to be patient. These teams that fire coaches right away all the time, unless it's the old New Jersey Devils in the past, it doesn't usually work out. Usually you want to be patient. You want this sort of longevity and just to see, let things play out. But in this case, Chris Jones feels like he's on borrowed time. Felt like he'd been on borrowed time before. I mean, what about last year? Weren't they the last team to finally win a game? And so I know you can look at it, and I know I have. I'm like, well, all their losses are by like 4 points. I think Ottawa has a worse record, maybe coming into this week it's changed, in terms of being outscored on. But if you keep losing games like that over and over and over again, then at some point you have to make a change. Here comes the cliches. You can't fire all the players. You got to find the coach. And the coach, Chris Jones, is supposed to be there for defense, and he got ripped apart by Drew Brown yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, 400, giving up 480 yards passing is, I don't care what league it is, even if it's a Canadian Football League, that's inexcusable. But I'll play the opposite side of this there, Matty. The crazy thing is they've lost, I don't know if this has ever happened, NFL or CFL. They've lost 3 straight walk-off games, like 3 straight. How is that possible?
It's insane. I mean, it's crazy. It also speaks to the CFL this year, where it's a really high percentage of games that are all ending in the final 3 minutes. It's certainly a great product to watch. I would give Chris Jones more of the benefit of the doubt if he hadn't won a total of 8 games over the last 2 years. It's not like we have this large base of success where you can be like, okay, we'll write it off. Hey, it's a blip. Things happen. He hasn't done the winning. When you don't do the winning, you don't get the benefit of the doubt. And I think it's not a long time now before we see Chris Jones let go. And again, I don't like to be that guy because when a coach gets fired, there's family, there's friends, it uproots your life. Like it is so much more impactful than we often think about in the media. So I'm not cheerleading it for it to happen. But if we look at the way professional sports works, this is probably what is going to happen.
Okay, one last thing with the Elks here. Mm-hmm. Okay, they score a touchdown. The people in Edmonton are going crazy. They finally think they got to win at home. The radio broadcast, I'm listening actually to both on CHED, and I've listened to 1200 TSN and AJ Jacobek. They're both going back and forth in terms of excitement. The thoughts about the squib kick by Boris Beattie that goes out of bounds. Like, all I did on Twitter, I put unacceptable.
Yeah, oh yeah, and it's funny, they were debating that on TSN as well. Davis Sanchez said it was a good idea to actually squib it, and the rest of the CFL and TSN crew were kind of giving him the stink eye. But the problem is, you squibbed it to the corner. If you're going to do that, you go straight down the middle, and you're delaying the clock and you're trying to create chaos, and instead it goes right out of bounds. What you don't want to ever do is the one play that makes the opposition go, thank you for doing that. You made our life that much easier. Of course, it still then required a Drew Brown pass to everyone's favorite player, Khalil Pimpleton, to put the team in a position to get the game-winning field goal. And by the way, totally off topic, has there ever been an athlete named Pimpleton who was good? Like, that sounds like the name of a bad 1980s comedy where it's not Pimpleton. I mean, that guy was incredible. But to the point is, that play was endemic of all the mistakes made by Chris Jones. And maybe they should have gone for a 2-point conversion right at the end of the game anyway. But now we're just really doing the nitpicking.
Yeah, I mean, there was certainly some thoughts about that. I mean, but I just thought, had they missed the 2-point conversion, then we're talking about the same thing. But you're right. Yeah. The way it ends up, we're talking about Chris Jones and the Elks in the same way. Had they gone for 2 and missed it and said, what are they thinking? Why did they just go for the tie in overtime? Come on.
Damned if you do. We would have, listen, we were going to find a way to criticize Chris Jones no matter what happened. We'd find a way.
Okay, the Alouettes, hey, they lose their quarterback, Cody Fajardo. He's got a hamstring injury. And the Alouettes are defeated by the Argonauts. Okay, has the glass slipper broken? It was almost a full year. And the last team to beat the Alouettes were the Argonauts in Montreal. We actually saw some chinks in the armor, if they could kind of say that, for the Alouettes the week prior, and they pulled out a victory. Have they been figured out? What do you think?
I don't think they've been figured out. I think all eyes are going to be on Cody Fajardo and to see the injury. Right before we started doing this, I'm frantically searching and looking around to see if there's any new information, and there isn't on the hamstring injury. Everything goes down to that. If this is a long injury, now we have a new conversation because now it's the Caleb Evans show. But and you're right about a couple of weeks ago where Montreal got a little bit lucky. In that loss to Toronto, full credit to the Argonauts. That was a great return by Janorian Grant. That was a Wynn McManus tracking the Caleb Evans pass, pouncing on it, and the interception return touchdown. But usually you're not going to get that. Usually you're not going to get 2 return touchdowns in one game. So I'll give Montreal a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. They still have an incredible 1-2 punch in terms of national receivers. They still have all that talent on defense. They had a crazy run. They hadn't lost in 300 days. So unlike with Edmonton, where that loss against Ottawa brings up a lot more questions, to me, I'm going to hold off a lot of my comment until we find out more about what's going on with the health of Cody Fajardo.
I'm going to give a lot of credit to Cameron Dukes. After back-to-back games where I thought, he came out of the gate the first 2 games, and I was and I think everyone was like, whoa, who needs Chad Kelly, right? And then there was the back-to-back losses. It was like, when's Chad Kelly coming back?
Yeah,
I thought he did a real nice job in a hostile environment, first of all, and playing a very good defense.
Yeah, playing a very good defense. Remember at Sankey, Mustafa Johnson, there's talent all over the place. I would say that what Cameron Dukes is supposed to do is what we saw on that game. High completion percentage. Don't do a lot of, you're not going to expect him to put up 300-plus yard games or really challenge a defense late. I think Cameron Dukes, the best thing we could say about him is, can he be a guy that helps raise the floor of the team? I don't think he's someone that can raise the ceiling, but that's fine. There's only so many of those quarterbacks out there. But he only had 3 or 4 incompletions. More importantly, no turnovers. The Rough Riders lost was at 3-4 interceptions in that game. So for Cameron Dukes, he did what was asked of him. He performed at a high level for the context in which the game plan was set for him. So yes, I think any Argo fan was happy to see that. Keep trying to get these wins. Keep trying to figure out who this defense is going to be, and then wait to see when Chad Kelly, if and when he returns.
Okay, now, if you were a betting man and you had took the under for the Bombers and Stampeders game, with about 3 minutes left in the first half, you were looking good. You were looking good. And then it went crazy. The game went nuts. It went off the rails. I believe 3 touchdowns in the final 3 minutes. And then the second half, it just would not stop the scoring. At the end of the day, the Bombers put together what I thought was something that looked more like what we know the Bombers to be. Good running, Collaros on target, and they win the game. That's back-to-back wins for the Winnipeg team after, again, everyone was talking about they're old, that they're falling apart. Collaros has lost it. Of course, he got hurt for a game. What do you think about the Bombers? Are they right back to being what we expected them to be?
I don't think they're there just yet. I think we have to remember all the games they played, all the playoff games. Eventually, that amount of time, it eventually culminates, and it can wear on a team. And they're not a young team. No Dalton Schoen, no Kenny Lawler. That is a concern. But to your point, they ran the ball. Olivier was great in that game, and that a lot of it is their identity. And then we're talking about crazy wide receivers. Some Ontario Wilson guy over 200 yards. It was great to see Zach Collaros have his first 2 touchdown passes in that game against Calgary. On the other side, it was great seeing Jake Maier. But here's the thing about Winnipeg. They're still near the bottom in sacks. They're still near the bottom in points scored. I'm not going to say they're all the way back to what our expectations were. They certainly played better. But sometimes these great teams, sometimes they just have that bad year. And I'm not ready to say they're out of the woods just yet because of the amount of games they played, because of their age, and some significant injuries.
You know, it's interesting over these years where they have been the dominant team in the Canadian Football League over almost close to a decade right now. One of the things we've always complimented the Bombers about is the fact that they're able to plug and play. Guys get injured and they find someone like. Who's like Ontario in Manitoba? Like, who is this guy? Like, it's amazing to see. And another thing you pointed out there, which shocked me, and I was only during the ball game that it did get said, but I had to think back and I thought to myself, wow, that was Zach Collaros' first touchdown pass of the season. Didn't seem right.
No, it didn't. I mean, that didn't seem right at all. And he's not a young guy. He's taken a lot of hits. But part of that's just fluke. Part of that's bad luck. And part of it, as I said before, is injuries. You lose the best wide receiver. You then lose Kenny Lawler. It's going to have an impact on your passing game. But yes, like those were jarring. The lack of sacks is a little bit jarring as well. We usually expect Willie Jefferson every week to be, part defensive end, part pterodactyl. What he can do on the football field. So a lot of it's just weird because we expect more from Winnipeg. We have such high expectations for them. Maybe by the end of the year, a lot of the doubt will seem silly. I just need to see a little bit more because, compare them like if we win the NBA, the Golden State Warriors. At some point, everything comes to an end. At some point, all dynasties crumble. And I'm not saying it's crumbling, but it's hard to maintain that level of excellence and success and to play all those games year in and year out.
We talk about touchdown passes, and it seems like Vernon Adams could do this, throw the football, and he's got another touchdown pass. Is he running away with the most outstanding player trophy in the Canadian Football League?
100% he is. The only thing that is going to stop him now is bad health, either him or if he starts to lose all of his weapons. The difference between him and Bo Levi Mitchell is Bo Levi Mitchell's 0-5. And it's unfair when we do most outstanding player and MVPs and how much we put winning and losing at the feet of quarterbacks. Same thing with Cloud Bethel-Thompson. It's not his fault the squib kick or the bad defense that he's had around him. But for Vernon Adams, A, they're winning. B, he's got 1 interception. That was in the second quarter of week 1 against the Argonauts. He has the most passing yards, tied for most touchdown passes, has the lowest interception rate. Again, just 1 interception right now, putting up massive numbers. That game against Hamilton, he could have had well over 500 yards, but they were out to such a big lead. He had about like 330, 340 yards at the half. Yes, Vernon Adams Jr. right now is the favorite. And he led the league in passing yards last year, so it's not a total shock. I imagine if you talk to some Alouettes fans, they would remember the early days of Vernon where it was inconsistent. It was a lot of up and down. And what I credit Adams the most for, going into this season, he was asked, what can he improve upon? He immediately said interceptions, because he led the league in interceptions last year. And I think, Bubba, what I appreciate the most is he's not throwing interceptions, but it's not like they're a conservative offense in BC. They're throwing the ball all up and down the field. And usually if you're the team challenging secondaries deep and you don't mind throwing it 35, 40, 45 times a game, there's going to be interceptions. So far, that hasn't been the case.
Yeah, I think he threw 2 in the last game, so he's up to 3.
Okay. Yeah.
But it's incredible what he's doing, as you said, and I like what you said there in the fact, because it's not a concern. It's not like what Calgary's doing, right? They're not trying to be balanced. I mean, they know, what the Lions offense are going to do. They want to go vertical, they want to upfield the football, and they want to attack defenders. And they have these wide receivers, McInnes. I mean, good Lord. They are not only athletic, they're big. And they are catching the football. Everything is going right for that offense. And you're right to say the fact that, they're quite confident right now. I'm amazed by this. I brought this up on a previous podcast. Do you remember Vernon Adams in Hamilton? Like wearing a Ticat shirt when Vernon couldn't even get on the roster, right? Because Masoli was there, injured, may never play again. We don't know. I love Jeremiah, but who knows about his future? Dane Evans, no longer in football, out of football. And then remember the other guy, Johnny Manziel.
Oh, my God.
Really out of football.
I got that in my head. Yeah.
Really out of football. So there's 3 quarterbacks that he could not get on the Hamilton Tiger Cats roster. June Jones did him a favor by saying, look, it's not going to work out here. You're a good guy. Vernon was running pass patterns as a receiver. He just wanted to be part of the team. And they shipped him off to Montreal, and then I guess he's gone on to do what he's doing. It's an incredible story of I think, just keeping at it. And the guy's a good guy, too. He's always been a good guy.
Yeah, he has. I always remember the stories during COVID. He spent like $20,000 of his own money to fly some of his teammates to, I think it was in Seattle, some of the Pacific Northwest, so that they could train together, so they could stay in sync and just bond. Like, I always have rooted for Vernon Adams Jr., so it's a great story. In a year where hopefully Cody Fajardo's hamstring isn't that bad, we're having a great year with quarterbacks, and hopefully that can continue. So, yeah, I mean, it's just fun. It's just fun watching McInnes and Hollins and these guys breaking tackles and the amount of yards after catch and Vernon Adams Jr. just pump faking guys open left and right and aggressive and going deep and no checkdowns in BC. Oh, it's glorious.
All right, let's get to it. I know I've been kind of avoiding it. I talked about the Tiger Cats off the top, and I appreciate the fact that you've been in this market. You understand the Hamilton football fan. You understand and know what people are saying on the fifth quarter on CHML with Rick Zamperin, and I got another good friend of our podcast here. All right. The bye week hit, and you saw what BC Lions did to the Tiger Cats at Tim Hortons Field.
Yeah.
I know you weren't here, but I know you were watching. And if you didn't know, I've said it before. I said it to Dunk on 3 Down Nation as well, too. I have never seen as many people leave a game at halftime. In all my years of watching Hamilton football, whether it be at Tim Hortons Field or at Ivor Stadium, it's well over 2 decades now, I can honestly say that. Okay, so the bye week hits, and there's a thought maybe there's going to be changes. But with the exception of signing an American defensive back earlier this week, all remains the same for the Tiger Cats. Argonauts are up next.
Yeah.
Do you think this is the tonic that gets his team over the top?
Well, I mean, certainly there will be a lot of members of the Hamilton Ticats defense that knows the Toronto Argonauts offense, you know, with Jamal Peters, with Dwayne Hendricks, and Brandon Barlow. I got to tell you, Baba, I'm shocked. I'm shocked by this. I wrote a column recently in the CFL when I was asked, you know, which of the winless teams do you think has the best chance? I picked Hamilton over Edmonton and over Winnipeg. I just assumed, that with the talent infusion that they had received, with the balance that they have, with Bo Levi Mitchell, that they would be able to get it done. And we've seen them lose close games. A weird one against Saskatchewan where the ball goes off of Tim White's hand. But then we've seen blowout losses as well. And I'm not surprised the crowd left. I think I was looking down at my notes here. I think it was like 321 yards in the first half for Vernon Adams Jr. You can't have that. So how many times did we see guys wide open or Vernon having so much time to throw the ball? Where is the defense? Hamilton's supposed to be way better, and they're not. And I get why everyone left. There was high expectations. It was a gorgeous night. You were expecting, okay, Hamilton is going to be able to at least be competitive. I got blown out. We don't have as many blowouts in the CFL. Most games are usually relatively close. That final score, that process was shocking.
Do you think the Argonauts, though, what it seems to be over the years when there's the sight of the Argonauts, especially here in Hamilton, that might suck the best out of this team?
Yeah. Oh, God, 100%. Remember, as we mentioned before, we saw Cameron Dukes look really good. We've seen Cameron Dukes throw 4 interceptions in a game. And so, yes, I could absolutely see Hamilton winning this game. I mean, they have talent. They've got recognizable names all over the place. And like so many of the guys that they lost from Toronto's defense, those are really good players. Those are really productive players. I expected Ottawa probably to be at the bottom, or at the very least, all these teams to be jockeying for a position right till the end of the year. 0-5 is unacceptable right now for Hamilton. Because again, they don't have the excuse of, well, our quarterback is injured. Oh, well, we lost our starter and our second string guy, and now we're bringing in a third stringer who's learning the system. That excuse isn't here. This should be a better team.
What are your thoughts about Sunday Night Football? I've heard mixed thoughts. I love it. Personally, I'm watching it. I'm a media guy. I love the fact that there's a game from Thursday to Sunday. But I'm hearing across the nation that some people are saying, look, I got to work in the morning or whatever the case is. And you know what? To be honest, some are saying too, I'll say this straight up. I can't drink. I can't get loaded. Right? Enjoy the game because it's Sunday. What are your thoughts about Sunday Night Football?
Well, maybe start the game earlier, get a little day drink on, and, you have a little bit of just a small buzz that you're able to bring down with plenty of water so you can be a responsible worker the next day on Monday. I like Sunday Night Football. I have no problem with that. Also, you can just have 2 beers, maybe even 3. You should be fine the next day at work. But I know we're not sitting here talking about people's ability to consume alcohol and then work the next day. But I do like it. I'm a fan of Sunday night. If you don't want to do it when the NFL season starts, fine. There's no shame in that. The NBA for years and years does counter-programming to try to make sure they minimize the amount of times they're going up against primetime NFL games. And yeah, I am a fan of it. In fact, what bums me out is, with this week being with the MLB All-Star game, I don't know why the WNBA and the CFL, they're not having double headers on Wednesday and Thursday. Really try to, capture that market, capture when you've got a couple dead days or just when there's just lighter options out there. But no, I'm totally good with Sunday Night Football. I always find it weird when it actually is on a Tuesday or Wednesday. That's the one that's far more jarring to me.
Well, I think, it's right, because I have thought about that often over the years about, wow, like what a spotlight for the Canadian Football League during MLB All-Star break, because really, there is literally nothing going on, like very little in terms of major professional sports that are going on. The hockey guys are all at the cottage, and then the basketball guys are working out new $100 million or probably $200 million contracts. I know 100. What am I thinking? Like
Emmanuel Quickly would be so angry at you if he was only making $100 million.
I know, it's nuts. But yeah, it's a great opportunity for them to play a Wednesday night game. The only problem is, what Jason Moss has been saying about player safety and the schedule and having to play 4 days and 2 games in 4 days, and then everyone gets upset.
Yeah, oh, no. I totally understand that. If you can point out the safety issues by having it on a Wednesday, and then obviously I would acquiesce. But if there was a way, excuse me, that you could do that, maybe with bye weeks or whatever, I would love to see that on a Wednesday and a Thursday to, do a couple double headers. But in terms of scheduling, that's for people far smarter than I am.
On the Ticats Audio Network, I had a sit-down chat with Commissioner Randy Ambrosi, and the thought of expansion, or the conversation of expansion, came up. And if I read through the lines, it appears to me that it's not happening in Halifax at any time soon. And I appreciate what the commissioner was saying, is they don't want to rush into something. And of course, that would be the worst look for the league if they got a team somewhere and then next thing you know, they're done in 2 years. I respect that. But I get a feeling, and is that not the reason why there's no touchdown Atlantic this year? It's touchdown Pacific, right? At the end of the day, Matt, what place other than the East Coast, what city or town do you think would make the best place for an expansion team?
Clearly a second team in Toronto. What are we talking about? No, I'm kidding. Okay. Quebec City. Okay. Quebec City is where I'd like to go. They certainly have a strong university presence in terms of on the football side of things. You could have the Montreal versus Quebec sort of rivalry. So I was thinking about that one. The other I was just looking at population centers, maybe somewhere in Windsor, and you could get all the, you could get the crazy Detroit fans, and 2 years from now, inevitably when the Lions stink again, they're going to be fans that are going to be looking for football. So I was either going with Windsor or Quebec City. Those are the two places I was looking at.
It's interesting because, I feel like there's other places. I thought about Saskatoon. I know there's such a love for the Canadian Football League, and maybe people that are northern Saskatchewan wouldn't have to drive so far to Regina, and they would have their own team. Yeah. I think we're okay in Alberta. What Omar Doman is doing in BC has just been fantastic, great. And it's great to see the second level open and that people are filling it, and there's certainly all kinds of anticipation for the Grey Cup to be played in Vancouver. It's one of the only places I've never been to in terms of a CFL city, and every time the TSN cameras do the drone shots or whatever, I marvel over what a beautiful place Vancouver must be. If you've been there, I guess you're totally in agreement with me. But I just feel like, Matt, we got to get another team in the East. This unbalanced schedule stuff is so dumb to me.
Oh, absolutely. Odd numbers do not work in sports. No one likes odd numbers, So, yes, 10 teams make sense. And it is a shame that if there isn't the corporate dollars or what it is, whatever's gone wrong on the East Coast, because then you have coast to coast. You got the Atlantic, you got Pacific. Also, you think about drone shots in Vancouver. Imagine the same thing in Halifax. It's one of the most beautiful places in Canada is the Maritimes. It's a shame that it's not been able to work out there. It's something that we've all wanted to for forever.
Have you heard anything? Have you understood why it's not going to work? Why it's not working there?
No, everyone's pretty quiet about it. But in the end, it's always simple. It's about the money. Is there enough corporate money? Is there enough corporate pledge for dollars to make it work for a stadium and to help fill out, some of the higher end seats and things like that, and the luxury boxes and all that? Everything always first starts with the money. So you sort of just follow it from there.
I'm going to have to throw you a curveball only because I know your love for the National Football League as much as the Canadian Football League. And you and I, for many years, have battled heads because of the 1991 Super Bowl and your love for the New York Giants.
That's right.
TSN did an interview with the game out in BC with Nathan Rourke. It was great to see him. What are your thoughts? Will he? Danny Dimes, is he the guy? Yeah. And will Nathan Rourke get a chance to crack the roster with the G-men?
He absolutely should get a chance to. My God, that's pillow soft competition. Daniel Jones is not a good quarterback. The only reason that guy is starting is because of the amount of money they paid him. Nathan Rourke absolutely deserves an opportunity. And I'm sure that's partially biased because of who we are. But, I mean, at the very least, give him a chance. Now, if he doesn't get a chance, you have to assume that the coaching staff has seen enough tape and just feels that the deficiencies are too great. But we know he's really smart. We know he's mobile. He doesn't have the strongest arm in the world, but you don't always need to have a full howitzer to get it done. You can be a quarterback in that league for a long, long time. And by the way, Bubba, Scott Norwood had never kicked a field goal longer than 46 yards on grass. Now you expect him to kick a 47-yarder at the end of Super Bowl 25 with that much pressure? That loss was not on Scott Norwood. That loss was on the Buffalo Bills offense not being able to figure out Bill Belichick's defense. The greatest coaching combo ever. Bill Parcells and Bill Belichick working together. Giants 20, Buffalo Bills 19.
You're killing me. Stop it. Stop it.
Yeah.
All I know is the MVP of that game should have been Thurman Thomas. That's it. That's all I'll say. I'll leave it at that.
Otis Anderson would like to have a word with you, but you're probably right.
Matty Cauz, always a pleasure to talk football with you. One of the best in the business. And as I say, I always love your wit and your opinions and obviously educated guy as well, too. Good luck with your show, and thanks for joining us, partner.
Hey, listen, always love doing it. Thanks for having me on. Always love talking football. And hey, go Hamilton. The league's better off if they're in a much better position than what they are right now.
Oski wee wee, partner.
Yes, eat 'em raw.
Hey, that's your Sportsline podcast for the day. And as you've just seen and heard, we love talking sports, Canadian Football League with great people. If you do know of an athlete, team, or event to promote, the Sportsline crew do want to hear from you. Please hit that thumbs up, like, and subscribe button. And if you do have something to say, please comment. The wonderful people that make the Sportsline podcast possible, thank you so very much. And we'll see you tomorrow.